Luka Dončić is a 19-year-old hoops prodigy from Ljubljana, Slovenia, with a bright, contagious personality and a supremely balanced skill set. It's been said that Luka is perhaps the greatest and most promising young player in the history of European basketball. Lofty expectations for a player, but nonetheless, he's been on the radar and in the conversation for the #1 pick in 2018 for the last year or so. He's a point forward type with great size and a solid build at 6'8" and 225 pounds, and a very highly developed and keen sense for the game. If anyone fits the bill of prodigy, it's Luka Dončić. The son of a seasoned Eurobasket and Slovenian League player, Luka was immersed and inundated with basketball from birth. Luka basically made it a perpetual habit to play above his age group. At 7 years old, he was playing with the 10-year-olds, and by the age of 12, his potential was so apparent that Real Madrid had secured Luka's rights from his Slovenian national team and made a home for his development for the next 7 years. By age 16, Luka had become the youngest player in Real Madrid's history to play in EuroLeague and Liga ACB. By 18, he'd won the Rising Star Award, an award that he would win the following year as well, and just a year later he snagged the MVP in both Liga ACB and EuroLeague, where he led Real Madrid to the championship and earned the MVP in the Final Four. So your boy's winning some awards. He also played Eurobasket with Rudy Fernandez, one of my favorite never quite made it in the NBA guys. The guy who to me always looked like he'd show up to a pool party in a Speedo and try to steal your girlfriend. Also dunked on Dwight Howard, but I digress. Dončić has a reputation as a big-time player and a very fiery, competitive guy. He wants to kick your ass. He wants to bury you. He's got a contagious swagger and confidence.
Oh, mercy, yes, we got to beat that competition.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And he's got that flair and rhythm for the game that you don't often see. There's a real joy to Luka's on-court presence. Constantly being pitted against physically more advanced players is likely the reason that Luka's skill set is so heightened and balanced. When you're at odds with your environment, you either adapt or you go away. That alone lessens my concern about Luka's ability to adapt to the NBA. He adapted early, became a polished fundamental player as a result of playing against older players all the time, and then he grew to 6'8" and found himself with a superb vehicle for basketball with all those same skills that he'd accrued. It's my opinion that Luka is both the best passer and the best pick-and-roll player in the 2018 draft. Overall, I think you could say that he's the most skilled player in the draft. I think if you put Trae Young and Luka in the same bodies, you might have a conversation, but let's face reality, they're not in the same bodies. His fluidity, his steadiness as a ball handler, and his size and vision make him extremely difficult to deal with from a variety of spots on the floor. It's very possible that he'd be one of the elite passers in the NBA within his first 2 seasons, if not immediately. He definitely started to get better at bullying smaller guards with his back-to-the-basket scoring, and very often brings additional defensive pressure that he can effortlessly turn into open shots for his teammates. He's become a very physical player, he welcomes it, and he seems to relish the challenge of scoring in traffic, both getting to the rim and creating his jumper off the dribble. Don't shoot me, but he's got an almost LeBron-like ability to get in the middle of the floor, put pressure on the defense in transition, and rifle pinpoint passes to shooters. Dončić is a quick but not explosive athlete, but he more than makes up for that on offense with his understanding of angles. He can hit a shooter or a roll man from just about any angle. This kid can make any pass. And it's to the point where he seems to be challenging himself in games just to see if he can pull things off. And pushing it a bit is one of the criticisms of his game at this point, but he's also a kid. You pick your poison with Luka, and I expect that to only get better. He's a good enough shooter that he commands attention as a ball handler in the pick and roll, and physically he can work his way into the lane, where his floater game is also pretty lethal. This draws a lot of attention from hedging defenders and forces the extra help to make tough decisions between addressing roll men and open shooters. Luka's jumper is a quick flick motion, the old quick flick as they call it, but his shot selection and consistency have both been ongoing concerns. He's far from a knockdown shooter, but for the type of vision and playmaking that Luka provides, it's more than tolerable in my opinion. Creators of his ilk typically do not share the same kind of scoring ability. He really has no aversion to shooting off the dribble or in traffic. In fact, it's widely thought that Luka shoots the ball better when he's engaged with the defender. Floaters, mid-range jumpers, out to the three, Luka is a threat to score or create offense in most every situation. He particularly likes to dribble at a defender's chest, stop on a dime, dribble behind his back, step back, and hit a mid-range jumper. He does this from 3 sometimes too. It's very Bradley Beal-esque. Judging a player's environment before they get to the NBA can be one of the toughest things to do. Were they protected or propped up by a flattering system? Were they enabled or disabled by a coach? Who were their teammates? How will they handle the monetary and social freedom that comes with the elite status of merely being an NBA player? It's a difficult conversation. I often encounter American basketball fans that roundly dismiss the idea of European basketball. Failing to make the NBA in their eyes is a humbling and mortifying plunge to the bottom of the basketball zeitgeist. It's a failure in their eyes. Well, if he fails, he might end up overseas. I'm here to let those fools know that they are misguided. First of all, I would just contend that there are more talented basketball players right now than any time in human history. And second, the EuroLeague, especially at the top, is significantly better than high major college basketball. EuroLeague and Liga ACB specifically are chock full of excellent polished players, many of whom were once high major D1 college players, stars even. Be clear, Luka was kicking their asses all the same. Here's a taste of some of the names that were playing with and against Luka. Are the athletes as consistently impressive as the NBA? I mean, no, they aren't. But it's not like Luka is just physically dominating inferior opponents on offense. Watch him play. He's definitely enjoying the spoils of being 6'8 and 225, but he largely picks people apart with his immense basketball IQ. The size is just a bonus, albeit a major bonus. That said, Luka's defense is a valid concern translating to the American game. By my view, Luka's on-ball defense is his biggest problem, and his willingness to fight through screens is going to be challenged nightly in the NBA. You very often see him failing to get down in a stance, to sit in the chair, as they say, and really focus for more than a few seconds. He's nimble enough and intelligent enough as a player to become a passable on-ball defender, and as a team defender, I actually think he's probably in decent shape to translate to the NBA. But also, come on people, a huge offensive talent that's not the strongest defender ever? No precedent at all for that, right? I would not let this be the reason that you check out on Luka if it were me. Analysis can be paralysis. To me, this is the most important part of the Luka discussion. I think it's huge. There is no more contagious or culture-shifting quality, spare tenacious on-ball defense, I guess, as a close second, in basketball than unselfishness and a willingness to move the ball. I think it goes even deeper than that. But I think it's human nature. Not to go all Tony Robbins, but unselfishness breeds more unselfishness. You do something nice for someone, they're going to do something nice for you back. It's in most every area of life. Some of the most fondly remembered teams in the history of the sport were examples of this. The Celtics and the Lakers teams of the 80s. Those early 2000s Sacramento Kings teams, who were robbed, by the way. Sorry, Lakers fans. Basically, any championship Spurs team. These Warriors teams that we're watching now. The D'Antoni Nash Phoenix teams. There just aren't that many players out there that can come in and be a culture changer like that. It's a rare basketball gene that many of the great ones have had. I'm just saying, it's unfair to put that kind of pressure on Luka. I understand, I agree, I'm with you. Let's not be too hyperbolic. But he's been under the microscope his entire life, so I doubt he minds. I know, it's borderline blasphemous hoops talk. I had to pray the rosary after those names came to mind, and I'm not even Catholic. But I will go on record and say that I think whatever organization Luka joins will be significantly better on offense next year. Add to that the fact that he's also a very capable scorer and a relentless, bullish competitor, and the case for him as the most promising player in the draft just starts to become exceptionally strong. It's piling high, it's wobbling, it's that tall. Let's just say you put Luka's personality in DeAndre Ayton's body. You've got, I don't know, a weapon of mass destruction and carnage. Last point. This kid is clearly a leader. An 18 and 19-year-old kid comes on to an established team of grown men, seasoned veterans, and not only becomes the best player, but the leader? I'll just say this to that culture that I mentioned earlier, it trickles down. Whether it's a government leader, a CEO, a local knitting club president, or your D&D leader, the strongest teams and organizations have the tone set at the top. I think Luka is that kind of impactful player. It's just my opinion. When your best player is a willing passer like that, your team changes. Guys that seem done on another team might suddenly seem like they're back from the dead. Chemistry typically improves. But most of all, basketball becomes fun. And I think whoever drafts Luka Dončić is in for a lot of fun. Let me know if you agree. Hey folks, I appreciate you watching, and if you like this video, click the like button and be sure to subscribe. You can also